Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, January 30th, 2018. Today I will be reading a short story, or perhaps first chapter of a larger novel, which I wrote yesterday on the evening of the 29th. The title, thus far, and it's a running title, so it may well change at a later date, is Saga of Frair. We begin Chapter 1. Hey, you're all right, mate? Frair continued gazing out at the crowd in a daze, before glancing quizzically at his friend Seth and laughing gaily. It was the date of the annual Lamistide celebration, marking the end of a successful harvest season, and the event was in full swing. All throughout the town could be heard the revelry of merry kinfolk. The hazy air smelled of tobacco, wood smoke, and barbecue, with the faintest hint of animal manure wafting in from the stables on the periphery. All along the main road there thronged booths offering harmless entertainment and vice, hucksters telling fortunes and running gambling tables, gypsies in elaborate makeup performing tricks, and snake charmers entertaining an elated crowd of youngsters for a farthing. Further up the road, the bread makers and butchers were handing out delicious sausages and bread, cut hastily by their apprentices. Atop the dais in the town square, a traveling theater troupe was giving an equal parts interesting and perverse performance, replete with humor of a sort warranting a confession to such a degree that a passing priest visibly turned his nose up at them as he walked by on his way to the belfry of the nearby church to strike the noon bells. I'm all right, Frair replied, just a little tipsy. The event had been going on for several hours already, and with the ringing of noon bells, scores more were pouring in to get a taste of the local delights. The two boys, having already had their fill of revelry and foreign fruits, settled on having mittag in a local tavern that they had come to frequent often over the past few months of hard work in the fields. The Piked Pig, as it was called, was a tavern of slightly larger than average size, located in a squat wooden building off the main square. The frontage was notable for the leaden sign showing a smiling caricature pig on a cavalryman's pike tilted horizontally over a cooking fire to spit roast. Frair and Seth sauntered in, blissfully unaware through their alcohol-induced buzz of the disrespectfulness of their bringing foreign liquor into a different proprietor's establishment. They slid into the nearest benches and sat opposite one another at a table in front of the opened shutter window, overlooking the fair in the square before them, of which their revelries had, until now, been a part. After an unacknowledged furrowing of brows in contempt by the waitress, she asked them in an artificially exuberant tone, "What'll you have?" She was a voluptuous blonde woman, with girth reduced and breast extenuated by the tightly wound corset, along with a pronounced bustle tail out the back of her dress. "I'll have the special," Seth said nonchalantly. The waitress replied, "All right, so that's one piked pig special, composed of steak and kidney pie, pork ribs, and salad, for you." Turning to Frair, she continued, "And you, sir?" "Ugh, a beer for me." "Like hell you are," Seth interrupted. "You're not even done your mead from earlier." Turning to the waitress, he said, "He'll have the same, with some water," quite firmly, before returning his attention to his friend, who had stopped nursing his glass of mead and appeared to have sobered up to a conversational level again from his possible binge into oblivion. "So, what about you and that Lydia girl, eh?" Seth asked. Lydia was a milkmaid and stable hand that Frair had gone to for a roll in the hay with a few nights ago. They had met on a warm summer's afternoon at the edge of his field, where she had asked him for directions. After that, he had made a habit of stopping to have lunch there, so that he might chance upon her warm, freckled face, blonde locks, and kiwi-sized breasts once again. She had reciprocated in kind, making an effort to chance upon him with great frequency, until they were eating lunch together there almost daily. One thing had led to another, culminating in that night of barnyard fun in her hayloft abode. That was a week ago, before he found out she was promised to a local knight's son. There was no way he could hope to come up with a competing dowry, and to expose the impropriety in light of the circumstances would serve only to enact her legislated rape and stoning, and his excommunication from the church. There was nothing to be done for it. He had found out, quite by accident, when he had decided after working up the courage to scout about the area of the barn atwixt she worked, had made love, and otherwise lived, in order to invite her to the Lamistide festival with him, where he would make his proposal, only to see, much to his horror, his fair maiden being whisked away by a knight on horseback, his beloved's fair bosom quashed between the thighs of another man reaching for a kiss, her arched back writhing as the horse galloped forth, driving them ever deeper into one another's embrace. Seth had, as any good friend ought to, consoled him, and invited him to revelries of various sorts throughout the day, in a bid to distract him. Frair, for his part, had put on a brave face, and hidden the anxiety gnawing away at his tender soul. But the alcohol had brought out the worst in him, for Frair said nothing, instead gazing dejectedly at the half-drunken glass of mead before him. "Don't look so glum," Seth said consolingly. "You may not be able to wholly replace her in your heart, but I'm certain you will find another like her in time, or better even, and that will be enough, all right?" "If you say so," Frair acknowledged noncommittally, before taking another sip from his glass of mead. Just then, a new waitress arrived to interrupt. "And here's your meal, sirs," she said with a smile. At the sight of her, Frair was jolted from his state of internal toil. He took it in, the look of the young woman before him, a petite blonde with hazel eyes and subtle, barely discernible breasts, and, unlike Lydia, a gleaming, unbespeckled white face with a texture of the porcelain gold-leaf halo of a Londonderry china teacup. Seth gave a non-judgmental, knowing smile, and stealing his friend's mead glass, raised the last dregs to his lips. As the conversation turned, once the subject was out of earshot, of course, to means of bedding this new maiden, and later, more civil matters of the farming trade, the full harvest moon arose, as a new evening sun, intermixed with the twinkling artificial stars of the fireworks display before them, with Lydia and the knight's son standing center stage on the dais to light the ignition. A new chapter in Frair's life was dawning. Yes, he could feel it. And thus ends what I have written thus far. I intend to draft a second chapter soon, and have already blocked out the plot. I promise not to make any spoilers in this video, of course. So, thank you for listening, and have a wonderful evening. All credits for this production go to myself, Daniel Howard Hurt. Thank you, and God bless.